What is up, everybody? We're rolling audio here today on episode 80 of The Harder Show. What is going on, guys? I hope you're doing absolutely freaking fantastic. Thank you so much for tuning in and clicking that play button on today's episode of the podcast. Episode 80. I'm pretty happy about that. Considering that we together collectively have kept this podcast going that long. The fact that I'm at 80 episodes, I'm almost on 20 episodes away from episode 100. It's pretty crazy to me that this has come as far as it has, that enough people are interested in this every week, that I have been still wanting to do this and still feeling like people are listening. So thank you so much. Thank you so much to everybody who has been with me since the beginning. Y'all know who you are. I'm not going to sit here and thank people or anything like that. But episode 80 is a big deal, and I think I just wanted to say a little piece about it. So thank you to everybody who has made this possible and made this so special to be able to do this for 80 episodes. And I have no intentions of slowing down the podcast anytime soon. Lots of other fun stuff to happen, but today we are discussing something that people are surprised I haven't talked about before, considering what I do for a living. It's a pretty gross topic, actually. I have no idea if anyone's going to listen to this for this reason, but maybe people who work in custody, with the public and that kind of thing, might appreciate. My fellow cleaners will appreciate this and everything. But before I do that, before I get into the podcast more, I want to just thank everybody who has put a t-shirt pre-order in. If you do want one, let me know right away. I know there are more people out there who have said they want the t-shirts. When I see people when I'm wearing the t-shirt, everyone says they want one. So if you do want one, let me know. I'm probably going to order a few extras to kind of have them on hand. So if anyone wants to buy one, I can say, yes, I have a t-shirt. Once again, they are $25. Good, high-quality Gildan t-shirt. Awesome design from my man, Mr. Jason Reese over at Digital Arts. So what's not to like? You get to support The Harder Show, the podcast you're currently listening to, and you get a nice t-shirt. So, yeah, maybe you'll even get a extra little gift with it or something. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But, like hats and beanies and toques and Harder Show beer koozies and there's like Harder Show panties and Ed from Beyond the Wall suggests a Harder Show banana hammock, which is crazy. So you have lots of ideas, I think about doing stickers and that kind of thing. So if you have any merch ideas that you'd like to see, hit me up and let me know. I also talked about on the last week there on Saturday, I did a kind of a quick impromptu Facebook Live thing. I didn't hype it up or anything like that. I did it like within 2 hours. So if anybody misses it and felt bad, don't feel bad. Basically what I wanted to do with that, like I said in the video, if you guys checked it out, was just I wanted to have a video up of me talking about the pre-order, but I figured, I'll just do a live thing. It's quicker, it's easier to upload, and I ended up kind of chatting with some people as well, so there's definitely some fun chat banter in there from myself and Mr. Jason Reese, of course, came out. Michael from Forsaken Empire, Brandon Hastings of Outshine, Ed from Beyond the Wall, really good fun stuff. The heel Ryan Wood and 2027's Man of the Year, Adam Litlop, also kind of made a brief appearance in the first one that I did that day. So definitely thank you, everybody, for tuning out and hanging out and sharing it and that kind of thing. The support's always so very, very, so very incredible. Thank you all so much again for all the support. I am just, I'm thankful. I'm very thankful, and I'm always going to be thankful. I also talked about the Harder Show website that hopefully will be happening. Probably either. I shouldn't even give a timeline for it, but I'm definitely working on it. So rest assured, I am working on it. I think that would be a very cool next big step for The Harder Show. Start kind of building our online presence a little bit more, and just building this brand a little bit more is it's kind of the end game. As much as this is all for fun, as I always say, it would obviously be cool to kind of help extend the brand a little bit. But all that stuff aside, I'm going to get in this podcast here, and I'm going to say this again right now. This podcast is definitely not going to be for the faint of heart. It's definitely not going to be for people who are grossed out easily, because today, if you clicked on this podcast, you must be intrigued. Today, I am talking about the things you find and you see cleaning up after the public. That's right. So without any further ado, we are going to roll into this podcast here. Let's get into it. All right, so we're talking about things you find and see cleaning up and after and serving the public. Now, as I said in the intro, this may get a little, I guess, for lack of a better term, gross for some people, because I'm going to tell some stories, and I'm going to go pretty in depth about some stuff. Basically, what I've done is I've thought up of some past stories I have from kind of working with the public and cleaning up after the public for about 5 years in total that I've cleaned up after the public in total, I would say. And I mean, I've worked with the public for my whole working life pretty much in some way, shape, or form. So even not necessarily at my current job, but some of these stories also are just things I found and seen even working at gigs. None of these stories have happened recently. So a lot of this stuff is things that happened back in the day, stories I used to tell my friends and that kind of thing. So that's why some people were kind of interested, the fact that I haven't talked about this yet, because there's some pretty interesting things you see and you find cleaning up after and serving the public. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to talk about some of the things that I've seen. And like I said, each kind of point I make, I have a story behind it. So we're just going to kind of go down my little list here. The number one thing that is just hilarious about kind of some of the things that you see when you're working with the public and cleaning up after the public and that kind of thing, and I'm sure most people can relate to this, is just some of the things you hear people talk about. Like, I'm not talking about like, you're sitting and someone's discussing their weekly job or something or whatever. It's the weird things that you kind of hear and you kind of do a double take. Like, did that person seriously was just talking about that? So I do have to warn that some of these stories do get pretty, I guess for lack of a better term, vulgar and very X-rated very quickly. So if there is anything I say and that kind of thing that's offend you, you may want to just giving you a heads up, just a little bit of parental discretion, because this is a PG-13 podcast. But probably one of the stories that sticks out the most to me, kind of some of the weirdest things I've ever heard people talk about. One of which was like one of my first shifts working at my at the Newcastle Travel Plaza there. One of my very first shifts working. And I'll set the scene for you. Basically, I was in the bathroom, first time on my own cleaning the bathroom, and I'm sitting there doing whatever I was doing. I was cleaning a mirror or whatever, and these two gentlemen walked in. They're doing their thing and didn't think anything of it. And I hear one guy pipe up, and I quote, as I said, this is going to get very vulgar and weird very fast. So this gentleman says, "So, like, did you fuck her or not?" And I kind of just went, okay, like, whatever, And he goes, "Of course I did. Oh, it was great, blah." And they starts going into detail about his sexual encounter with this girl, and he starts talking about it, and he's detailing this, just the weirdest stuff I've ever heard in my entire life, talking about how, like, he was like, he's like, "Oh, I taught her upside down and blah blah blah, and I covered her in mud," and like, he's talking about this, like, I don't even know what was happening. He's talking about all these sexual encounters he had with this girl, and he's saying that he like urinated on her and all this other stuff, and like, and so like, I didn't really think anything of it. Like, I'm just kind of like, okay, whatever, that was weird. But the weirdest part about it is the fact that they were kind of getting ready to leave, and he comes over, and they're washing their hands, and the guy who was telling the story leaves, And the other guy leans over to me and he says, you know what the weirdest part about this whole thing is? I'm kind of like, I'm sorry. He's like, he's talking about my ex-wife. And then he just like walks out. And I was like, what? Like, what the hell just happened? I just listened to a dude tell a story of these bizarre, sexual encounters with this woman who turns out to be the guy he was talking to's ex-wife. How does that even, like, what the hell is, like, it almost makes you want to learn more, but you don't want to ask. I mean, just some of the stuff he was talking about, I can't even repeat it, but you can imagine. And if you're into that kind of thing, there's nothing wrong with it. Okay, you do what makes you happy. But to me, it was a little weird. There was another time, a few years ago, I was working. It was actually one of my last shifts actually at the job last for the first time. And I'm working, and this guy walks into the washroom with a laptop, right? I'm not one to judge. That's all I'm going to say. And anyway, this guy comes and he sits down, and I hear his laptop open up and start up, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be one of those moments. Well, I'm going to walk out of the washroom right now because I don't need to be in here for what's about to happen. And if you can't figure out what exactly I'm referring to, that's okay, but I'm not going to explain it to you. Again, this just use your imagination. Excuse me. So I get ready to leave. And then I hear like the Skype call sound. And I go, oh. So anyway, starts up on Skype. And he's sitting on the toilet talking to someone on Skype. And I'm kind of like, okay, like, I again, didn't really think anything of it. And he says, he says to like the person, hey, how's it going? Whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm just in the bathroom or whatever. The guy's like, oh, you're a weirdo. Haha, whatever. So anyway, they start having this discussion, and they're obviously talking, I guess they were brothers, and they're talking about their mother. Kind of a weird thing to talk about when you're on the toilet on Skype talking about your mother, but whatever. I guess she was unfortunately failing in health. So they were discussing like arrangements for her to move into a home or whatever. Nothing out of the ordinary, except for the fact of where they're having this conversation. So they continue talking, and how about this one, or how about this home, how about this home? And then it started getting weird because he said, well, we need to find somewhere where there's hot chicks. The guy on the opposite end of the thing, obviously, he was a younger guy. I could tell by his voice. And I'm like, okay. I was like, okay, whatever. I'm not going to judge anybody. If you want to go find a nursing home for your mother to live in that has hot nurses, that's your business, So as the conversation carries on, this guy starts explaining the women he tries to want to find in the nursing home. And that was when it occurred to me that this young man wasn't talking about the nurses. He was talking about the residents in the home. Let's sink in for a second. He was talking about the residents of the home. He was saying we need to make sure we find hot women in the nursing home. And I just kind of went, oh, okay. And he said, like, there'd be nothing better than going to visit mom and then getting a little side action, was his exact words. Obviously not from his mother, but you can imagine how weird that is. I was just kind of like, oh, okay. Again, who am I to judge? Do your thing. I'm not here to judge anybody or anything like that. If you're... into the grannies and older people, that's fine. There's no problem with that. But just a little weird to hear. A guy more concerned about finding some hot grannies in the nursing home he's going to put his mom instead of her actual health and so forth. But whatever. Again, who am I to judge? And kind of the last one I want to talk about. This one was really weird. A guy was in the dining room. And I was mopping the floor, and he's talking on the phone with someone, and he was clearly being, like, he was starting to get very angry, because I could hear him go, no, you're stupid, what are you doing, blah, 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 blah. So, as the conversation carries on, I start hearing him say things like, he's like, we can't tell anybody. You can't tell anyone. Wait till I get there. And he keeps saying things like that. Stop freaking out. Don't worry. We'll cover it up. It's not a big deal. And I was like, oh my God. Like, and then he started talking very quietly. Don't call anyone. It's fine. Like, don't call anyone. It's not a big deal. And I was like, oh my God. Like this guy is like talking to someone who just like murdered somebody. And I continue listening to this conversation, basically now convinced that this guy's talking to someone who just murdered somebody, or he's stolen something or whatever. And finally it ends off with, don't worry, we can paint over it. We can like redo the carpet or whatever. Like, don't worry about it. I was like, oh my God, like thinking I've discovered this murder investigation or whatever. And then he hangs up the phone and he goes, and he turns to me and he says, this is why I don't let my wife paint anything. And I was like, oh my God, like, it wasn't that weird, but it's just funny how you jump to conclusions. And it turned out to be absolutely nothing. So it's pretty funny. Like, you'll hear people discuss things, and especially if it at first, not at first glance, but at first listen, it may sound weird, or it is weird. I mean, I got lots of other stories from that, but I just think it's funny. Something that you do see, and I kind of touched on this beforehand. Again, I'm not here to judge anybody. I'm not here to sling mud or anything at all like that. You do what makes you happy. You do what you feel you need to do. Me personally, I never understood this, but hey, again, who am I to judge? Something that I haven't seen for a long time. I only saw it once or twice. And the first time was very, very strange. It was very weird, and it was like one of the worst things to happen to me in my entire life. And the other time it was less weird. It was just kind of like, oh, okay. And that is when, again, you know, a bit of a explicit content. When you walk in on some people having some action, got a little side action at the Travel Plaza. And again, this is something that hasn't happened, you know, even since my time being back there. First, this was years ago. I came in to work. It was a really slow night from what I can remember. A really slow night, maybe even the middle of winter. And I go into the washroom, doing my thing. It was like mid-afternoon, late afternoon, like kind of early evening. So like it was slow, but like there were still people around. And I walk into the washroom, the closed side of the washroom, just to kind of check it, make sure everything's good. And I hear whispering. I kind of went, oh, like someone's in here, excuse me, someone's in here on the phone or something. Okay, not that weird. And then that was when I realized, kind of as it progresses, that there's two people whispering. And I went, okay, again, you know, whatever. And then I realized it was a man and a woman. And I went, uh-oh, you know, that's a bit of a problem, because can't have women walking around the men's washroom and vice versa, obviously. So I kind of go, oh shit, you know, this isn't good. And that was when I kind of put two and two together. I realized that they were in the like the accessible stall, the bigger stall. And I kind of realized I kind of heard what they were saying, just kind of as I was doing my thing. And it's like, you have to be quiet. Shh, quiet. Shh. Someone's going to catch us. No, it's fine. And I was like, oh my good Lord. This is exactly what I think it is. So I leave, because I'm like, you know, I can't necessarily knock on the stall and ask them to stop what they're doing. So I go. And then a gentleman walks up to me. He says, yeah, just the most like blunt way possible. He walks up to me and says, yeah, there are two people having sex in the closed side of your washroom, just to let you know. I can hear them. I was like, yeah, that's what I figured was happening. Again, you know, who am I to judge anybody? If you're so desperate for a little side action that you're gonna pull into a Travel Plaza and go in the washroom and do what you need to do, I mean, who am I to judge you? You know, I know some people get their thrills off that, but I mean, it's got to be difficult to focus on the task at hand. If, you know, especially when I walked in the washroom, I mean, damn, that must have been weird. But I guess that's part of the thrill. So then finally, I kind of go, okay, so like, what do I do here? Like, I can't kick them out. I can't walk in the washroom and ask them to stop and kick them out. Like, we can't really do that. So I just kind of go, okay, like, I guess I'll just wait and see what happens. I think I asked a supervisor, what I should do in the situation. They were like, we can't kick them out. So I was like, all right. So anyway, a little bit goes by and I'm vacuuming the mats or whatever. And this guy kind of comes wandering out of the close out of the washroom finally. Very kind of casually, very slowly. And I'm like, oh, this is going to be priceless. Because now I'm like, I have to witness this walk of shame. Because that's what it's going to be. And so he's kind of standing there and he kind of takes a look around. And he looks in the open side of the washroom and there was no one in there, I guess. And he runs over to the side and he goes, hey, go. So out comes his girlfriend or wife or whatever. And they kind of very casually just walk out and fix themselves and, you know, keep walking. And at that moment he turns and he looks at me. And I'm just like minding my own business vacuuming. And we kind of meet eyes for a second and he winks at me and they keep walking. I was like, oh my God. Like, you know, finding people or walking around people getting a little bit of action is always weird. It's only happened to me a couple times in my life, in a public setting like that. So whatever. But there was another time, again, years ago. Now, I didn't witness this firsthand right away. And this was a situation where, you know, again, we couldn't really have them stop, but it was definitely bizarre. I was working with someone who I used to work with, and we were in our little closet type deal. We keep all our cleaners and stuff. This was years ago, and we're getting ready to go home for the night because that was when there would be two of us on the same shift. And we came walking out, and she went over to Tim Hortons or whatever, and I was in the washroom or whatever. And like all I hear is this running, and I'm like, "What the heck is that?" And I come out of the washroom, and she's like, so like there's something going on over there. And I'm like, "What do you mean?" And I turn the corner and I see this lady standing kind of by the window with her back to us. Like her back to the window. She's wearing this dress. And, you know, she's just kind of standing there. And I was like, okay, like what's the issue? And that was when I kind of saw the look on her face of, how should I put this? She almost looked like she was in pain. And I was like, is like she okay? And she's like, just watch. And then that was when I saw some movement underneath the dress. And I go, I gotcha. Okay. And I guess that her husband was underneath her dress, you know, doing what he was doing. I don't think I need to paint a picture there anymore. But finally, after a while, again, you know, there's nothing really, any indecent exposure happening. They were in a corner where no one could see them. It was very late at night. What do you do in this situation? Well, I'm not going to approach them and say they have to stop because, I mean, number one, I don't have the authority to do that. And, you know, they're not really doing anything wrong. So just kind of let it be. And then, you know, we go about our business and I'm getting ready to leave for the night and I'm going to walk out the back door. And I'm just like, just for the sake of argument, I'm going to see if they're still there. So I just kind of quickly took a glance over just to see if they were still there. And they're both sitting on the bench. And again, you know, the second time this ever happened to me, I'm kind of like, just like not standing there looking at them. I was like standing there like on my phone or whatever. And I looked and I kind of went, all right, I'm going to walk away. And I kind of like looked back for a second and the guy's just staring at me. Like just staring at me. And I was kind of like, okay. Like clearly he knew that I saw this happening. And he just is giving me this look that's just like, oh yeah, buddy. Oh yeah. And I was like, all right, that's friggin' weird. Again, you know, I'm not one to judge anybody, but I guess there's got to be a time and a place. And I guess the only other time that ever happened to me was a while ago when I was at the store. And I came out, it was about 8:30 at night, you know, pretty dark. I come out from the store, go around out back to the parking lot, and I'm walking out back and I hear whispering, and I go, oh, someone's out back or whatever. And I turn the corner and there's two people literally like just getting it on right there at our back door on our back step. Like right there. And I'm just kind of like, can you guys not do that here, please? And they're just kind of like, oh, sorry. He put her away and they walked away. I just kind of went, like, like, I mean, I get it, but like, I don't at the same time. And it's like, what the hell? Like, I don't know. Some people get their thrills that way, I guess. I don't know. I don't personally understand it, but whatever. Something else funny that I see is things that I found, actually, I guess more so than anything. There'd be times where I'm cleaning, doing my thing, and I would just find these little stashes. Nothing bad. Years ago, I think I found like a little marijuana baggie. That wasn't really a huge deal. I turned it in and whatever, called the cops, whatever. Wasn't a big deal. But a place that I would always find stuff, you'd find these people's hiding spots. And again, there was never anything bad. The one time I took off a toilet paper dispenser to like replace it, and someone had stashed money in the money clip in behind this toilet paper dispenser. I think there was like $30. Like, it wasn't a lot of money either. So that was what the weird part was. And it was clearly stashed there. Like someone was going to come back and get that at some point. So I kind of went, okay, well, it's a money clip. If it's a very distinct money clip. So, I took it upstairs, handed in the money clip, and I just went about my day. I was kidding. So anyone catches that. I handed in the money clip. So I took it upstairs and handed it in, because there's never any point in keeping money in that situation, especially if it's only $30. So I handed it in, and turned out like the guy had stashed it there, like for some weird reason he stashed there, and he came back that day to get it. And he asked for the money clip and everything. And so like, I mean, it was clearly his. So I went and got it for him, came back down, and I said, just out of curiosity, why did you put it behind the toilet paper dispenser? And his exact words to me were, I had to hide it from my wife. And I went like, what? Just, I don't know. There are times where I found, like books in crevices. I found a dude trying to stash, we have like the phones, pay phones. I don't know why I couldn't think of the friggin' name of them. And like, there's like a little crevice where we keep the phone book. And I found a guy trying to stash like papers in the phone book the one time. And I said, like, why are you hiding papers in a public phone book? And he's just like, oh, I need to hide them or whatever. And like, I'm just like, I don't know, dude, I got no time for this. And it's always funny whenever you find someone like trying to like to hide stuff. Even people who used to work in the building, they would try and stash like food and stuff. I used to find all the time in our fridge at our work, I'd find people like stashing like Frosties in the freezer and like half-eaten sandwiches in the fridges and stuff, and in the brand fridges and stuff like that. And it's always just weird, and then there'd be people who would stash stuff outside in like the bushes. One time I found like a bag, and I was like, oh shit, it's a bag. It was clearly stashed there. Like, you could tell the way it was put in. And I went, oh crap, like this is gonna be like drugs or something, or money. So, I took it into the manager. Manager opens it up, and it was just clothes. So we kept it, just kind of thinking like maybe someone just lost it. And about a month or so later, a guy comes back and he's like, hey, I had stashed some clothes in this bush or whatever, so I would like know where they were or whatever. And we were like, what the hell? And it was just clothes. Like, there's nothing else in it. So just some dude who was a traveler decided to stash some clothes there in case he needed them, I guess. I don't know. There's some bizarre people out there in the world. I don't think anything of it. Something that you always see, and it's always bizarre, is obviously whenever you witness a breakup, which I have witnessed more breakups in my time at the Travel Plaza than I ever thought I would witness in my life. And I mean breakups, not like fights, I mean breakups. And just friggin', I'm sitting there minding my own business, and a couple comes walking in, and they're just screaming at each other. And whenever that happens, you know, you can't let people disturb everybody, but you kind of have to be respectful somewhat as well. So it's kind of a fine line. And this one time, this couple walked in, and they're just screaming at each other. And they were clearly on a trip. Like, you know, they had backpacks. They were on a trip. You know, you could tell that their car was loaded up with stuff. And they're just screaming at each other. Just, you stupid effing bitch. And you stupid asshole, blah, blah, blah. And they're just screaming at each other. And finally, I think one of the managers came down and was like, you guys need to stop. Like, you can't be yelling at each other like this in here. You're going to have to go out to your car or whatever. And the woman pipes up, I don't need to because I'm sick of this stupid dumbass. And we're done. I'm breaking up with you. And she like starts walking down the highway, and it was just like, oh my God, what is happening right now? It was bad. We had to like call the police and stuff. It was really bad. The amount of times I've witnessed like breakups over the phone at the payphones, that always sucks. You never want to hear that. You know, I remember a time one dude, I like was like consoling him because he was an older gentleman, and I guess his like longtime girlfriend was leaving him or something. He was like on the phone, like begging her, like, I'm sorry, I'm never home. I'm sorry, please don't leave me. And he's like telling her how much he loves her and all this stuff. And like the thing is with the payphones is I have to walk by the payphones to get to our little closet to get the cleaner. And this guy was on the phone for like a good 2 hours. And like just I would have to walk by. I can't avoid doing it. So then finally he hangs up the phone, and he like was like sat against the wall like crying. And I'm like, oh my God, like what do I do in this situation? So finally like I walked by him, and like he kind of looked at me, and I was like, shit. Like this was way back in the day. I was a kid, like, and I'm just kind of like, hey man, like how you doing? Like, is there anything I can do for you? Can I get you anything? And, you know, he's just like, oh, I need a fucking whiskey. And I was like, well, I can't get you that, but can I get you a coffee or something? And, you know, I tried to kind of help him along here. Just this like 17, 16-year-old kid. I mean, if it happened now, obviously I'd be a little better in the situation, but just being a kid, it was funny. Well, not funny. I mean, it sucked for that poor guy. You feel for him. But I witnessed that all the time. And another thing that was always weird is kind of touching on walking around people, getting some action in, would be the random little hookups I would see. I wouldn't see them very often. I maybe only saw one or two, and it was usually from people on bus trips who you clearly could tell didn't really know each other that well, and they just like, you know, like I'd see the hookup happening as it was happening. When I say hookups, I don't mean like hookup. I mean like they were clearly not together before this trip, and I'm seeing them get together, you know, especially if it's kids on like a bus trip or something. You know, you see them like kind of, the guy goes for the hand grab very slowly, girls blushing or whatever, and it's like it's cute to see, but it's still like, really, like at a travel plaza? I don't know. You know, I watched a dude like go for a kiss on a girl, and she like pushed him away and was like, no, we're friends. And it's just like, oh bro, friend zone. Like I see that kind of stuff, and it's so hilarious because people are like, you know, why are people doing stuff like this at like a travel plaza? And I couldn't tell you why, but it makes me laugh because it does happen. And especially I think more than anything, the breakups suck. Because like literally, you do see them, and it's just the worst thing you've ever seen. But something else that's always, you know, always interesting to witness is some of like the epic battles I've seen. Not necessarily between couples or anything. Nothing that has gotten physical. There was only one time I witnessed like a physical fight, and I'll maybe go into that in a minute. But when I say epic battles, what I'm talking about are like customers just screaming at each other. We had a guy one time, he comes in, and again, this was years ago, and he comes in, and he orders a sandwich or whatever at Tim Hortons, and he didn't get what he wanted on his sandwich. So he comes back to the counter, and he throws his sandwich on the counter. He's like, this isn't what I ordered. I want what I ordered. and he was like screaming at the person behind the counter, who of course can't say anything back. You know, that's customer service. And the guy who was getting a sandwich, man, was like, okay, bro, like, calm down. There's no need to scream with this poor girl. Like, he was a regular customer. And the guy turned to the guy who was kind of defending her, and he was just, you mind your business, you stupid MFer. And I don't know why I'm censoring some swear words, but not others, but whatever, I'm rolling with it. And the other guy was like, okay, like, you know, you don't need to talk to me like that. Like, this guy wasn't backing down. So they start, like, they're getting right in each other's face, and he's trying to defend the person on sandwiches, and like there's like, oh my god, like there's gonna be a fist fight. The guy's like, do you want to take this outside? And luckily the supervisor kind of like broke it up and de-escalated the situation. You know, the guy apologized, whatever, it was all good. But I mean, you see stuff like that all the time. We had a guy years ago, similar situation. There was a regular customer who was like standing at the counter getting a coffee, and someone came through drive-thru and hurled a coffee at the person who was working at the drive-thru. Luckily, the person did not get hurt because it was a coffee. It was hot, obviously. Just hurled it at her and was standing at the window, like, berating her because I guess he ordered a double-double and didn't get a double-double. So he hurled the coffee at the girl, of course, which is definitely the answer here, folks. If you don't get what you ordered, please hurl it at the person who gave it to you. You know, absolutely, for sure do that. That's definitely the answer. Am I being sarcastic or not? You figure it out. So this guy, who is a regular customer, he comes in almost every day. He goes running out the side door and like steps in front of this guy's car and is like basically pulling him out the window. Like, and I was like, oh my God, like, what do I do? Like, again, this was back in the day. I was a child. I did not have again, you know, nowadays I might be a little better to handle the situation, but I was freaking out. I'm like, we need to call 911. Like, I was outside, like, trying to, like, I was like, sir, like, and, like, what do you do? You know, the supervisor's trying to calm the guy down. He's got the one guy by the scruff of his shirt in his car, saying that he's going to stand here and wait for the police to come to arrest him because that was assault and blah, blah, blah. And ended up, it de-escalated. Everything was fine. Luckily, the girl was okay. The coffee was, I guess, just cold enough that it didn't burn her or anything, the way it hit her. So that's good. But you see stuff like that, and it boggles my mind. You know, people just, these epic confrontations you see. And the one that it did, unfortunately, get physical. This really sucked, actually. This was a long time ago. I wasn't working there very long when this happened. This was a situation where, unfortunately, the police were called and everything. I was standing there. I think it was like, I was a couple months in, and I happened to be standing there with my old boss, and with an old friend of mine, and we're standing there, and all of a sudden this guy comes running inside, and he says, "There's a dude out there who is just beating the shit out of a woman, presumably his wife, like just kicking her in the stomach, and like he's like, you need to call 911. I'm gonna go out there and like kick this guy's ass." So we're like, wait, what? Like, what? Like, so we run outside, and right on cue, there was two guys working at Tim Hortons at the time, and they came running out, like, right on cue, and like took the guy out, and just like held him down, and the police pulled in like right away, and like this guy was just like beating his wife, and there was this other trucker like fighting the guy, and like it was like a scene out of a movie, and I was like, oh my God, like luckily like the woman was okay. I mean, as okay as she can be. You never want to see crap like that. Men who hit women like that are the biggest pussies in the entire world. But you know, luckily she was okay, because he was just a weak little bitch, so it's okay. But it was like, we had to like give statements. I was like, oh my God, like this was like 2 months in. I was 16 years old. I was like, okay, like, oh, just very, very bizarre stuff that I have seen in my time working there. The one thing you never want to see, obviously, is like special abuse or that kind of thing. So obviously that sucked to see. One other thing that you never ever want to see, and it's just, it sucks to walk in on. It's kind of a dual thing. One is someone servicing themselves. And if you don't know what I'm referring to, use your imagination. I have walked in on that more than once, and it is the worst. It's just the worst, okay? When you're sitting there trying to clean the bathroom, you don't realize someone is in there, and then you hear noises, grunting and groaning, and your life just flashes before your eyes. But the worst of the whole thing is we have these like family washrooms, right? That like there's a lock on the door, and they're unisex and everything as well. So we'll go in to clean them. We'll knock, anybody there? Open the door, go in, clean, whatever. Obviously, if someone answers or the door's locked, we don't go in. And years ago, it was another, like one of my first closes. A lot happened to me my first year there, as you can probably imagine and tell. And I go to like the female side, and I'm ready to clean, and I knock on the door. Is anybody there? Is anybody there? I always ask twice, knock twice, and then I open the door. So I go in, and there's a dude standing there, like just standing there with his pants fully off, unit out, just standing there, like looking at me. And I was like, oh, I'm so sorry, sir. And he said, oh, sorry, buddy. I was hoping you'd be a little hot young thing to help me out with this. Ha, 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 ha. You just heard me correctly. A dude was standing in the female side of the family washroom with his unit out, hoping that some woman would walk in and go like, ooh, like just some random pervert, right? And it's just like, so of course, I went to go get a manager. Like I wasn't having any of that. You never want to see stuff like that. I caught a guy. Well, I shouldn't say I caught him, but I witnessed him being caught trying to install a camera in that same washroom. That's just disgusting. And you never get away with it. Like we're cleaning the washroom, we'd find it. So people are brain dead. I caught a guy again. I keep saying I caught them. I didn't catch them, but I witnessed it. A guy being caught trying to like drill a hole, trying to drill a hole like through the wall to try and like look in the wall. But the most bizarre, perverted people. There was a guy years ago at the travel center. I didn't see this happen. I wasn't there, but there was a guy trying to like get like upskirt videos and stuff who was there, and he got punched in the face by a woman's husband. So a lot of perverts out there, a lot of perverts. And I always say, who am I to judge? But in those kind of situations, no, I am judging you. You're a pervert. Don't do that. So random perverts and walking in on people servicing themselves is always the worst, some of the worst things you will ever see when you're there. And that's just some of the things that I've seen during my time in public service and cleaning up after the public. All right, guys, just want to take a quick second here to give a big shout out to the first ever sponsor and big time supporter of The Harder Show, my man, Mr. Jason Reese over at Jaybird Digital Arts. Now, what exactly does Jason do? Well, if you guys need any kind of logos, t-shirts, posters, album design, tickets, photo manipulation, you guys still with me? Advertising, business stationery, mailers, brochures, fine art, and literally anything else you can think of, Jaybird Digital Arts can create it. No project is just a generic template, and every single job is a new opportunity to create something unique. Jason's done all the Harder Show logos, t-shirts, banners, and even a meme here and there, so I can promise you that you will love and be inspired by what Jason comes up with. You can find him on the web at www.jaybird, that's Jaybird, digitalarts.com. Or you can find him on Facebook under the Jaybird Digital Arts handle, as well as on Instagram. If you happen to use his services, be sure to let him know that TJ sent you. Talking about some of the things that I've seen and things that you see, kind of working with the public and cleaning up after the public and that kind of thing. There's also things that you will find. Now, some of these things aren't that big of a deal. Some of these things are just kind of random, and some of them don't really have that good of stories, but a couple of things are definitely very weird, and definitely there are some interesting stories to come along. Now, obviously these are things I'm finding, so there is not necessarily people attached to all these stories, but still I think it's very weird, some of the things that I found during my time working again in public service and cleaning after the public and that kind of thing. Something that confuses me, and maybe someone can shed some light on this because I don't fully understand it. During my time, working, I would find people throwing out their food. Now, I'm not saying like they purchased something from Wendy's or a sandwich or whatever, and they eat most of it and then throw it out. I mean, like, entire burgers and full things of fries thrown in a garbage can, and like full sandwiches still in a wrapper thrown in a garbage can, or just left on a table or left on a sidewalk. I never understood that, and it confuses me very much. Maybe it's because I'm someone who doesn't like to waste stuff like that, but it always confused me. I never understood that. Can someone shed some light on that? I don't know. One time I literally watched a gentleman purchase a Baconator and a large fry. Okay. He walked over to a table, sat down, looked at it for like a good 2 minutes, was on his phone or whatever, got up, threw it out, and walked out the door. And I just kind of was like, what the hell? Like, there's a dude sitting at the table. He's like, did you just see that? I'm like, yeah, I did. He's like, that's weird. I'm like, yeah, that was really weird. I watch people get full coffees and take large coffees, take 2 sips and throw them out. Now, this bothers me for 2 reasons. Number one, why would you waste your money on that? If you're going to take 2 sips of it, buy a small. And the other reason why it pisses me off is because you're dumping an entire full coffee in a garbage bag that is not meant to hold a lot of liquid. So then when I go to do my job, coffee pours all over me. You lovely person, you were raised so properly. I mean, it always confused me. Hey guys, let's go to Wendy's and buy food and then throw it out because we can. I don't know. When there's people starving all over the world and you're wasting food like that, it just, I never understood it. Maybe I'm crazy. Maybe it's a thing. People like to spend money and waste it. I don't know. I never understood it personally. Something that's always interesting to find, and I find them all the time, like at least once a month I will find one. And I used to I was never sure what to do with them. And now I just throw them out. I don't care anymore. And that was Bibles. Like full Bibles, not Bibles that were like tattered and destroyed. I'm talking like full-fledged, some of them still in store-bought condition Bibles. All kinds of Bibles with notes, Bibles with, in boxes, like just Bibles. And it wasn't until, I found a few of them that I realized, okay, people are leaving these here for people to find in hopes that they'll find Jesus or whatever. I'm not going to sit here and say that, that your religion is stupid or that you're silly to think that that's going to work or blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to say that. I'm not here to judge anybody. Do what makes you happy. Believe in what you want. So long as you're good to everybody and you're respectful of everyone, I don't care what your religion is or your beliefs are. Do your thing. But to me, that was always strange. The weirdest thing is when I'd find notes attached to them. And this kind of correlates with the other thing I find a lot. And it's like, there'd be a note on top of the Bible, and they would always read something like, if you're having a bad day, read this book or whatever. And, it's like, oh, having troubles at home or whatever, read this book. Finding the Jehovah's Witnesses books and stuff are always interesting, because they're in the weirdest places. Usually you find them in the bathrooms. The one time I walked in to the bathroom and some dude had set up Bibles and opened them up to different chapters, or different books, I guess, technically in the Bible, excuse me. Not trying to offend anybody here or anything. And he opened them up each to a different book in the Bible and set them on every single urinal. And there were 7 urinals. And I'm like, so someone took the time to purchase and open up 7 Bibles and put them on the urinal so that when guys walked in to go to the bathroom, they'd be reading the Bible. That just seems like a lot of work. I don't know. I mean, that person believes, I guess, that if they do this, maybe they'll help save somebody, or this might inspire someone, or whatever the reason. Again, I'm not here to judge anybody or say that it's silly or anything like that, but just to me, it always seemed a little bizarre. I don't know. Maybe I'm crazy. If you're someone who, believes in that kind of thing and that's a thing, hit me up. Let me know why you guys do that, because I am curious as to why exactly that is a thing. The Jehovah's Witness stuff, I completely understand. You know what I'm saying? But that always confused me, the whole Bible, leaving a Bible thing. But happy and encouraging notes are always interesting to find, because it can go one of two ways as far as funny notes and that kind of thing. The happy and encouraging notes are always fun to find. There was one dude, he used to come in all the time. He was an older gentleman. He used to leave sticky notes all over the building. Like, not at once, but he'd leave them around the building for us, like for the cleaners, for the porters. And it would be like, great job today, smiley face. The place looks so clean, happy face, great job. After a while, he learned our names. And it wasn't like in a creepy way. This was just a nice old man who, he came by all the time. He'd get his coffee and he'd leave a sticky note, and he'd be like, oh, great job tonight, TJ. The bathrooms looked perfect, happy face. So it wasn't necessarily weird, but it was definitely different. Or, you walk in over, people would leave notes and stuff like that all the time at the payphones. I'd find notes of, it'd be like, you can do anything you set your mind to, never give up or whatever, stuff like that. You'd find them. And then obviously finding other notes, that you don't necessarily want to find, like, hey, for a good time, call Rick at blah, 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 blah. Or, looking for a sex slave or whatever, call so-and-so. And it's like, damn, okay. But the worst notes to find, and this is kind of the more bizarre thing, is when you find notes that people are deliberately leaving to ruin someone's day. And I used to think it was random, but then after a while I was convinced that there was someone who was deliberately doing this. And I'm not necessarily talking about like offensive graffiti or anything. I mean like a note, like literally someone took the time to go out and buy a pad of like a notepad paper, and write all these, like, not necessarily like offensive notes, like, go back to your own country, ha 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 ha, I'm racist, nothing like that. But like, I found one time, it was literally like, you're worthless, kill yourself. And I was like, damn, okay, like, holy shit, people, calm down. And like, stuff like, oh, like, the people, like, other truckers were clearly leaving for other truckers just because of like where they were placed. It's like, your wife's probably cheating on you right now. Like, just, how do you feel that your kids are growing up without you? Like, just stuff like that. I'm like, what the heck? Like, what is wrong with people? Just, oh my God. Like, someone probably spit in your coffee, like, stuff like that. I would find these notes and it's just like, what the hell? Obviously you'd find stuff like, oh, God isn't real, blah, 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 9/11 is an inside job, all that kind of dumb shit. But it was the ones that were like literally targeted at people to like literally ruin their day. Like, there's a sticky note on the mirror one time, and I'm laughing because it was just so dumb. It was kind of funny. Guy stuck a bunch of sticky notes on the mirror, like where people would be standing. It was like, you're ugly, you're ugly, you're ugly. And I was like, why? There was one I found one time stuck to the kind of like the top part of the urinal where someone would be standing and like be looking at, and someone had drawn a picture of like a woman pointing downwards laughing. You can probably imagine why that's funny. So like, I mean, I see that and I'm like, okay, come on. Like, yeah, that's like, just why? Like, okay, yes, it was kind of funny, but like, why? So you see stuff like that. It just kind of makes you think. It makes you question people sometimes. And some of the stuff I have found, I got a lot more, some weird stuff I found that just makes you think. One that definitely always kind of, it definitely makes me angry is when I find beer bottles. Because I mean, I shouldn't have to explain it to you. If I'm finding beer bottles in a trash can at a travel plaza, that means people are probably drinking and driving. I mean, really, who doesn't love to get hammered and drink and drive, folks? I mean, yeah. We've had it happen before where people have come into the travel plaza drunk, drinking beers, and we've had to like call the police and stuff. And that kind of stuff always sucks. You never want to see that. You know, drinking and driving is it's the stupidest thing you can possibly do. You're endangering your life and other people's lives. So definitely you should never ever do it. And the fact that I find beer bottles all the time, just it always makes me it always kind of annoys me when I see it. Or finding like whiskey bottles and stuff like that. Finding flasks is always weird, because like that means people deliberately have thrown them out. Like stainless steel flasks and stuff. You know, I mean, I know that there are some old school truckers out there who, unfortunately, they drink on the job. I don't see it firsthand, so I can't report it or anything, but I know it happens. Just because it's what happens. But you never want to see stuff like that. I have found like full cases of beer before. You know, I watched a dude go into his truck and pull out a full case of empties and throw it out in our recycling thing, and I was like, okay. That's not something you want to see. A full case of 24 being pulled out of a trucker's truck. You never want to see that. I did report that actually, because that kind of bothered me. I was like, you know, I mean, if you're stopping on the side of the road when you're going to sleep or whatever, and you're having a beer at night, I mean, whatever, I guess that's your business. It still shouldn't be allowed. Something that's always different to find. The next couple are getting a little weird. You never want to find like wigs and false teeth are always bizarre to find. One time I was doing garbages, and I saw what appeared to be a clump of hair, and I kind of was like, oh, like that's weird, and it was kind of like hanging out of the garbage can. So obviously, like, I had gloves on and stuff, and went to go move it into the garbage can, and it was like a full wig, and I was like, huh. Okay, I guess not really weird. Wigs aren't weird or anything, but I was kind of like, oh, like someone threw out a wig. But finding false teeth is always a little weird. You know, you walk into the washroom and there's a pair of false teeth sitting on the counter. That's happened to me more than once. I mean, what do? Do you just throw them out and call it a day? You know, someone might come running back in and be like, oh, I left my teeth here or whatever. So, luckily every time I found false teeth, they've been in some kind of a container. So, you know, like usually I like take it in the container and like leave it somewhere. A couple times people have come back looking for them. You know, fathers of elderly men or stuff like that. You know, so it's always bizarre. But one of the weirdest things I ever found in a garbage can was a limb. Now, obviously it was a prosthetic limb, but I found like a prosthetic leg in the garbage one time. That was the weirdest thing. It was just a foot sticking up out of the garbage, and I had to pull it out because I couldn't like tie the garbage bag, and I thought it was like a leg off a mannequin or something. I didn't really think anything of it. And like literally I pulled it out, and then when I realized it was a prosthetic leg, like I had like little buckles and stuff, and I was like, damn, okay, like someone got sick of their prosthetic leg and threw it out. Very bizarre. Some other notes that you find sometimes. I kind of touched on this earlier, but one story I forgot to tell. One time I walked into the washroom, and these extremely suggestive notes. I found them before. One of which, literally, it was obviously put there by someone who was trying to play a sick joke. It was like literally like it was attached to the mirror. And it was like, I want to watch you pee. And stuff like that. I'm just like, what the hell is wrong with people? Like, it just confuses me. You never want to, there are certain pictures I've seen. Now, this sucks. This is the worst. I have no problem with what you do on your own time. You know, I have no problem what you do with it in the comfort of your own home or the comfort of your own truck or whatever. It's not my business. But when I find a photo album of pictures I can never unsee because it's open on a table and I have to pick it up to throw it out, and I see pictures of, you know, you can probably put two and two together. That sucks. Finding pictures of trucker orgies and stuff like that, that's the worst. I never want to see that. That was a long time ago, but that was like the worst moment of my life because it was literally open like on the table, and it had been there for a couple hours. I didn't realize what the pictures were of. It was late at night. I didn't think anything of it. I figured someone would come back and get it. And that was when I finally walked over and was like, oh my God, like, no. So, yeah, I threw that out pretty quick. Again, you know, I'm not here to judge. You do whatever you want in your own time, but, you know, think of the other people in the world. You know what I'm saying? Keep that stuff to yourself. Finding piss bottles always sucks, especially if there's no cap on it. Be respectful, ladies and gentlemen. If you're going to use a piss bottle, please put a cap on it. Especially if you throw it out your window. Don't throw it at people. I've seen that before. That's the worst. But one of the worst things to find is hot bags. Now, if you've never heard of what a hot bag is, I will explain. Basically, a hot bag is either a garbage bag or a plastic bag or some paper bag or whatever that someone who was clearly on the road decided to stop, pull off the side of the road, and take a number 2 into a bag, tie said bag up, and dispose of it how they saw fit. Most of the time when this happens, people will just throw them out the window of their car. You know, don't ask how I know that. I just know that. But every once in a while, you'll find one. Someone will go to throw it in a garbage can and miss, and it will just be sitting there. You can imagine how that smells. Even if it's in the garbage bag itself, I mean, it's the worst. It's just the worst. It doesn't happen very often, but once in a blue moon. Hot bags, you never want to find that. Another weird thing that I found one time was I found a dreadlock. Now, that's not that weird, but there was skin attached to it. So that's weird. That's disgusting. I don't want to know what happened there. These last 4 things I have here before I wrap this discussion up. It's probably the weirdest things I ever found, and the grossest things I ever found. Like I said, the dreadlock. Finding dead animals, or just animals in general. One time I walked over to a garbage can outside, and there was this weird thing sticking out of it. And I kind of went, like, what the hell? So I grabbed and I pulled out, and it was a chicken. It wasn't dead. This was a live, fully grown chicken looking around, just kind of looking around. It just looked right at me and then kind of freaked out and like flew away and went to the side of the parking lot. And I was like, oh my God, it's a chicken. Like, it's a live chicken, and someone just stuffed it in the garbage can. I guess because they thought it was dead or something. So, you know, we called animal control, whatever. Farmer ended up grabbing it. You know, one time I found like a bag of like fish, like fully grown fish. I don't know what kind of fish they were. I think they were sunfish. Just a bag of like 12 of them. And that was weird. I transferred them into a bucket, and then I ended up taking them to the lake later that night. Made sure that they were native to Ontario, which they were. They were like a sunfish or whatever. Ended up letting them go in the lake. That's always weird. But almost weirder than that is finding dead animals. That sucks. You never want to find that. You usually find chickens, bait fish that have died, stuff like that. I found cats before. That sucks. Kittens. One time I found like a hamster just hanging out in a garbage bag. It was alive too. So that was weird. Again, you know, called I think we ended up calling like a pet store. I just would, whenever stuff like this would happen, I'd go into the manager and be like, yeah, I just found a gerbil, like call up a pet store they came and got or whatever. So that's weird. Something that you do find, and it's always just, it's not necessarily weird. I mean, I guess it is kind of weird, and that's porn boxes. Like just big boxes filled with like porn magazines and videotapes and stuff like that. Again, what you do on your own time is your business. I'm not here to judge anybody, but when you find it out in the open like that, it's always bizarre. I find them stashed usually behind our recycling bin. Like people clearly are throwing them out, but they're embarrassed. So, you know, they stash it behind the bin. That's always bizarre. Finding stuff like that. Especially when it's like hundreds of them. I found a big box one time. There's probably at least 100 plus tapes in it. I was just kind of like, oh, this is weird. Like, you know, you just throw it out and like, don't leave it for someone to find, you weirdos. One of the worst possible things to find. And this is weird. You will find condoms, used condoms, in the weirdest places. Let me explain. One time, this was one of the second worst thing I ever found while working there. What's number one? Well, you'll find it in a second. But one time I came in, and I'm doing my thing, and someone said to me, oh, this hand dryer's not working. Oh, no, okay. So I go to look, and I could like feel that the air was kind of coming out of it, but it was being blocked. So I put on a pair of gloves, thank God, reached up in, and guess what I found, folks? You can probably put two and two together. Someone shoved the friggin' used condom up in there so that I guess their hope was it would fall on somebody. I don't know. You can imagine that was the worst moment of my life, probably. Definitely one of them. Luckily, it was like tied, so, you know. I found them flung up on walls before, on roofs. I find them on the floor all the time. I find them in the bathrooms, obviously. I found them out back before. I found them flung in the garbage can, stuck on the wall. Like, just weird, you know? Just be respectful. You know, do what you do on your own time or whatever, but be respectful, please, to people who clean up after you. That's all I have to say. And kind of the grand finale of this whole thing is this famous story I tell. You may have heard it before. I've told it to people before. It is without a doubt the weirdest thing I ever found while working at the travel center. Again, this was years ago. The reason I keep saying this was years ago is because if anybody who currently works there is listening, none of this stuff happened that I didn't report or anything. I don't like that. So I'll set the scene for you. I was early evening. There was a slight overcast. No, I'm just kidding. Early evening, I go out for to take out the garbage, and I walk down to our little compacting area, and I see a small box spring, like just like a little single one, and I go, oh, you know, someone put a box spring there. Whatever, stuff like that happens. Obviously, we don't allow public dumping, but if we don't see it happening, we obviously can't stop it. So whatever. I went, okay, not a big deal. I'll break it down and throw it in the compactor. So I go to move set box spring, and I hear this rustling. And I go like, what the hell? And I'm like, oh my God, like what's in this box spring, right? I clearly could see there was like a tear at the top of it. And I go, okay, I don't want to know what is in this box spring, but I have no choice. I have to rip this apart so I can put it in the compactor. I don't have a choice. I have to at least cut it in half so I can put it in. So I pull it over, and I can hear there's stuff in it, a lot of stuff. So I kind of just go, okay, like, oh my God, this is the worst. So I'm like, okay, I got to see what it is, you know, because I got to cut this thing open anyway. So I look in the tear, and guess what I found lodged in a box spring? I'll give you a second to take a wild guess. Any guesses? I found inside this box spring approximately, I didn't count them, but I have to say there was probably at least 20 of them. I found inside this small box spring, as I was breaking it apart, throwing our compactor, I found approximately 20 dildos. You heard right, folks. Dildos. And not just any old dildos. Dildos of all varieties. And you know what the best part of the whole thing was, folks? They were used. You know how I know? The smell. That's all I'm going to say. So you want to talk about the worst things that have ever happened to you? That's definitely ranked the top 5 to me of all times. So, you know, I shoved that thing in the friggin' compactor and just walked away. And to this day, it has scarred me. Again, do what you do on your own time. Nothing wrong with it. But when you leave something like that for somebody to find, why was there like 20 of them or more? I don't know how many were in there. I'm taking an approximate guess from my first glance. Why would you leave that for someone to find? Like, why would you not just throw them in a garbage bag? Why were they in a box spring? What? Talk about unsolved mysteries, folks. Why was there over, say, 15 or 20 used dildos in a box spring at my work? What the fuck is wrong with people? Oh, what? Why? Like, what? Just, I don't understand. I don't get it. But that's the weirdest thing I ever found or saw working, cleaning up after the public and in public service. I would find weird stuff at the shop sometimes, but nothing that weird. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. I hope you guys enjoyed my little exploration into weird things I've seen and found while cleaning up and working with the public. If you're someone who works for the public or that kind of thing, maybe you can relate to some of the stuff I found. Let me know some of the weird stuff maybe you found. Obviously, while being respectful and confidential. As I said again, any of the stuff I found or seen or anything, most of the time it's always happened a long time ago. So nothing really that weird happens anymore. Aside from finding Bibles and that kind of thing and notes and stuff like that. Yeah, that's all I got for that, guys. Definitely a very weird and bizarre episode of the podcast. So thank you for tuning in and listening. I hope at least maybe you got some chuckles and some, maybe scratching your head about some stuff, make you think a little bit maybe why someone would do this or leave this or whatever. Regardless of how you're listening, thank you so much for listening. If you're listening on the SoundCloud, be sure to follow The Harder Show and leave a like on this podcast. Comment, let me know what you think of some of the stuff that I found and seen. And let me know if you're in customer service, do you work with the public or anything like that, some of the stuff you've seen and found, I'm sure everybody has war stories, If you're listening on the YouTube, then be sure to leave a like or dislike on this video depending on what you thought of it. And of course, comment away in the comment section below. Leave a little subscribe for The Harder Show. Always sincerely appreciate it. We're constantly building the YouTube brand. And last but not least, if you're listening on the iTunes, which you guys know is the easiest way to listen to The Harder Show, be sure to subscribe so that you don't even have to think about it. Every time a new episode is uploaded, it will be downloaded to the device of your choosing once you set it up. Very, very easy. And while you're there on the iTunes store, maybe leave a little rating for The Harder Show. Maybe a little 5-star rating, perhaps, always appreciate it. Any ratings at all, if you do leave a rating, be sure to leave some kind of a comment rating. The main reason I want that is so that if you do leave a rating, I can thank you properly by your name or whatever. I can let you know, say thank you properly, because I know we have 10 people at least who have given 5-star ratings, and I've only been able to thank 3 of them. So I would love to know who all gave ratings so I can thank them properly, because I could not do this without you guys, without your support. So thank you all so much. Again, hope you enjoyed this podcast. I know it was maybe a little bizarre for some people, but hopefully you at least maybe got some laughs out of it, got some chuckles. If you work in public service, I'm sure you got some chuckles out of it from stuff you've seen, just like myself. But that is going to do it from here today, guys. Thank you all again so much for tuning in, and I will catch you guys next time on The Harder Show. Take it easy.